everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Explore the Spectrum. I'm your host, Jeanetta, and we are joined with Stefan. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful today. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad for you to be here and to share what you're doing and what you're helping with in the community. Blue Line Spectrum is a phenomenal project. And so first, I applaud you for working in the dynamic that you are. Our first responders and our police officers are in desperate need of good information on best policies and best practices, because there's more and more of our kids that are growing up that they don't know how to interact with well, and it creates crisis and issues. And so the fact that you have a company dedicated to helping that, I just have to applaud you for straight away. Not to give up all of the things that you're going to be talking about, but what brought you into wanting to do work in this field?
My motivation for this is it's personal. I have two sons that were diagnosed about 10 years ago with autism. They are now 14 and 12. And as I learned more about the disability when we first received our diagnosis for our boys, I began to wonder what would happen if my two worlds collided, meaning my professional life, my personal life. And do we as police officers really understand some of the characteristics and behaviors that you're going to see when you're interacting with someone that has autism? And the more I looked into it, the answer was no. So I trained my own department. I am a retired police officer now. I retired about a year and a half ago, but I trained my own police department so that my officers would understand it. And then another department called, and then another department called, and then another department called. And about 4,000 first responders later, I'm still kind of doing this. And again, now that I'm retired, I turned it into a small business where I can travel and train our first responders, police, fire, and even EMS of what characteristics and behaviors and some positive strategies to help through some of these crisis type situations that they may interact with somebody who has autism.
Yeah, from my understanding, and I could have this fact wrong, but I heard this at a conference not long ago, that interaction with police or with law enforcement is the second leading cause of death for a lot of kids in our community. And it's because of either being put into a facility of some sort. It's because somebody might, expect a hostile reaction out of one of our kids because they're so what's the word I'm looking for? They're just unexpected in their approach, right? Our kids will jerk and they'll do things that are sudden. And the last thing you want to do in front of a police officer is anything sudden. No sudden movements is pretty much the key to getting through everything seamlessly. And so, it could be so innocent and land you in the eyes of somebody and they don't know that you're doing it. And especially with the communication barrier that is tied in with it, they can't tell you very easily what's going on with them. And so this is becoming, and we've got so many kids aging into adults. And so now you have a 6-foot person who is intellectually behaving more like a 6-year-old, but to a police officer that doesn't know them, they're a threat. And they've been trained that they are, so having to figure out that balance is paramount. And I know that the need is great and that police officers want the training because they want to know how to differentiate. And what you're doing is important for both sides of that conversation. Police officers need to know, parents need to feel a little more at ease. And it's a tough balancing act. So job well done on trying to reach out and make that happen. If you were to tell any parents right now what some tips would be to teach their children, what would be some ideas that we can share with them?
I think one of the most important things I tell parents is get to know your local agency. Get to know your police department, your fire department. Take your loved one there. Let them interact with the officers in a non-crisis type setting. Have them get comfortable with the badge, the uniform, and some of the things they might experience during an interaction with a law enforcement officer. It's really critical. And we know, like most of our kids who are on the spectrum, like change is difficult, right? Unexpected is difficult. But if you now have a frame of reference of how this interaction may go or interacting with that individual or that officer or that department, that is critical. So I strongly suggest parents go meet with their local agencies. Another thing that is available to parents is a special needs registry. And basically what that is most law enforcement agencies in the country have it, where you're pre-registering your loved one that has a disability so that when the officers receive a call at that address or from that phone number or with that individual, an alert will pop up that they have an intellectual or developmental disability or suffer from a mental illness. And really what it is for police officers, we don't know what we don't know. And if we don't know going into that interaction what we're interacting with, we're left to kind of decide in a moment what we're interacting with. But if we have that information ahead of time, we can better respond, use different strategies and tactics to make that interaction positive for that individual and the officer as well. So really, I tell parents, be proactive in doing this. Don't wait till you have a crisis type situation. If you're calling law enforcement for the first time and your loved one has never interacted with law enforcement, that's where we saw some of our issues.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and I hope that the folks that are listening right now take that advice and run with it, because the rigidness of how our kids operate, if we can ease some of those tensions in between, that would be phenomenal to set up a game plan of communication going forward. Now, do you only operate in your geographic area, or are you traveling to different parts of the country now and doing some of your services? If somebody's wanting to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you and maybe be able to get you to come and train folks in their area?
I do travel. I've done quite a few officers in Tennessee, the West Coast a little bit in the Seattle area. So I am available to travel. The best way to reach me is through my website. It is www.bluelinespectrumsafety.com. And you can message me right to the website. Email me. We can definitely set something up. I strongly encourage departments to do it. There's a handful of instructors in this country that are actually teaching this, but we know the need, the demand is greater than what we have available. And there's only a handful of officers with our backgrounds that are doing this. And so I strongly encourage departments to do it. Some states are mandating this training. Illinois is one of those. There's current legislation that's pending where law enforcement officers will be required to have training relating to autism, which is wonderful, but many states do not require it. And that's a very difficult situation. So I applaud those departments for being proactive and seeking out the training for their officers.
Agreed. Well, what a wealth of information you are, and a treasure you are to our community. Thank you for stepping up and seeing the need and deciding to fill that gap for us. I appreciate that, not only for me as a parent of somebody that has a child on the spectrum, but I appreciate it for all of the different families out there that get nervous about not being there in the moment when something could go sideways. Thank you for joining us.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. And to all of our viewers, thank you as we continue to explore the possibilities.